at question number 24, and this is from the SAT number 17. This is the 2019 April QAS test. And the question reads, the passage indicates that compared with other functions of coloration in plants, camouflage in plants has done something. So the first thing that we should notice is this little question tag that opens it, which says the passage indicates. And so this sort of question here falls in the same category as questions that begin with according to the passage or in the passage or the narrator indicates. And what this little tag tells us is that we need to find one specific sentence that we can use to answer this question. And again, in general, for every question on the SAT, we want to build the habit of going back to the text, finding a text, one sentence, or a cluster of sentences to answer our question. But for whatever reason, these specific sentences here, or these specific questions here rather, they rely on really one specific sentence. So you want to search for that one sentence, and it'll make solving this question pretty easy. Next thing that we can do is use the question order rule to help us sort of locate where the sentence will be. So here we have lines 1 through 2 all the way up to 10 to 13. I think answer choice C was the correct one for 23, although I don't think that matters as much. And then we can look here at question 25, which references lines 20 through 21. So what this tells me is that the sentence we're going to look for to answer 24 is most likely to fall somewhere between the range of lines 10 and lines 20. Again, we don't know this with 100% accuracy in advance, but generally it works pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scan between lines 10 through 20, and I'm going to look for one sentence that's going to tell us about a comparison that's being made between the functions of coloration in plants, right, other functions of that, and camouflage. So really anything to do with coloration, anything to do with camouflage, anything to do with these other functions and a comparison being made. So we're going to start with 20. I'll start with 20, and I'll sort of start scanning back here in this little area. And what we should basically end up on is these two sentences here. So 10 says, in plants, the use of coloration or pigmentation as a vital component of acquiring food, e.g. photosynthesis, or as a means of attracting pollinators has been well studied. So this is telling us one thing about another use of coloration, right, or pigmentation, used to acquire food or to attract pollinators. Then we get this next sentence, which says, however, variation in pigmentation as a means of escaping predation has received little attention. So between these two lines, we see a strong comparison being made between other uses of coloration, right, acquiring food and pollinators, and then we see that being compared to pigmentation that's used to escape predation or camouflage. So this is great. It matches all our criteria, and this sentence in particular tells us about camouflage, right? And what we're looking for is basically what is the comparison that's being made, and the main thing they're comparing between them is that this one has been well studied, right, the use of pigmentation to attract food and to attract pollinators. That's been well studied, in contrast to the pigmentation that's used to escape predation or camouflage, which has received little attention. So these two things here, that's the point of comparison, well studied versus received little attention. So let's see if we can find a text to answer that. So A says that camouflage in plants has provided scientists with a deeper understanding of potential food sources. So this would basically mean that more than the other functions, when scientists look at camouflage in plants, it helps them to understand, they have a deeper understanding of the different potential food sources that a plant could use. Really nothing in the passage about that. Definitely nothing in the text that we specifically found that talks about this. So I would get rid of A. Doesn't really seem to be on track. B says that camouflage in plants has made use of a wider variety of distinctive shades of colors. So there's kind of two things. So one is just sort of using common sense. We would think that camouflage in general is going to provide us with more neutral colors, with colors that sort of blend in, more muted colors, as opposed to being very distinctive in different shades. That's not necessarily true, but that might be a nice intuition to have right off the bat. The other thing is that really just the passage doesn't really say that camouflage is using all kinds of different distinctive shades of colors, and specifically in the text that we're looking at, we don't find any evidence for that. The text is more so about the difference between which has been studied more or less. Then we have C, which says proved to be a less effective defense against predators. So this doesn't really make too much sense. This would be saying that camouflage is less effective as a defense against predators than these other methods of coloration. But the other methods of coloration are basically the green colors to conduct photosynthesis and the bright colors to attract pollinators. So it doesn't make sense to say that those would be better at doing camouflage than the actual colorations intended to do camouflage, which maybe make it blend in with the surroundings more. So C is going to be wrong for that reason. And then D says that the camouflage in plants has been the subject of a smaller number of scientific investigations, which pretty closely matches exactly what our text says, which is that in comparison to these other functions, variation in pigmentation as a means of escaping predation has received little attention. So received little attention matches smaller number of scientific investigations pretty good. So we'll choose answer choice D as our correct answer for question number 24.